Dear God, Heavenly Father, this is your time, the Sabbath. 6 days a week, we petition you, Lord, to be where we are. And this is the time now, Lord, that we take everything else away and come and spend time with you. Amen. Where you are, dear Lord. So, Lord, we pray that each and every person here this evening will hear your voice, Lord. I pray, dear God, that your message will penetrate into the minds and the hearts of the people so that we can be bolder Christians for you, dear Lord. We pray in the name of sweet Jesus. Amen. Amen. Alright, just a very quick recap. If I had lots and lots more time and this was going over a couple of weeks, I could expand so much. And that's why I do apologise. No, not really, maybe just a little bit. But, you know, when you feed the chooks, you don't go and throw the whole bucket of food on the chooks. But I know sometimes I do that with you people. So, little apology. I wanted to ask, what was the first evening's message? Who remembers that? First evening.
Who do you say I am?
Who do you say I am? Personalising Jesus. Why did Jesus ask the question? Because Jesus says, I'm going to establish my church. And also said that the gates of Hades, hell, will not prevail. We're going to recap on that in 1 second. I've only got 4 slides tonight, and very profound. Second night is, what is?
The
Truth. What is the truth? And I gave you 2 extremes. One, in the name of Christianity, what he was doing. And then on the other side, the picture of love and compassion and anything goes. The third night was?
Sanctuary.
Amen. Sanctuary in the sanctuary. Finding sanctuary, that peace, that safety in the sanctuary. Last night was? First, second, and third. Have you ever wondered, you know, when the children have their running race, where first, second, and third comes from? Why first, second, and third? Why not just first? Why not first and second? Why not first, second, third, fourth, fifth? Why is it first, second, and third? It might be from the Bible, first, second, and third. Very important for us to understand where we fit into all that first, second, and third. And tonight is stop, revive, and survive. The Sabbath. When it comes to the Sabbath is a glimpse of heaven. Amen. Isaiah 58 tells us to turn our feet, our minds, our mouth away from everything else and delight in the Lord. And He will delight in that. And so tonight I was going to compare what it takes not to thrive in the Lord, but I do not want to give too much time and publicity to the devil tonight. But I'm just going to show you a couple of things. Where's this thing here? Does anyone remember what that was? Yeah. From our first night? Who do you say I am? Caesarea Philippi. Jesus took them to Caesarea Philippi, where that used to stand as a portrait there, an artist's impression from the historical books of what was there at Jesus' time. And at Jesus' time was, can you read that from where you are? That's the reconstruction, the painting of the sanctuary of Pan. This was one of their Greek gods, because this here was the center of pagan worship. Syrian pagan worship, Babylonian, Greek and Roman. And in this painting of the 1st century sanctuary of Pan, there is depicted from left to right the temple of Augustus, called the Augusteum, on the left. The grotto or the cave of the god Pan was behind it. See the big opening in the back there? And what did they call that? Remember I said there was a special name they used to call it. They called it the gates of Hades. Amen, little sister. That's what they called it, the gates of Hades. Remember, it all fits in if you dig deep into the Bible. Let's keep going. Then number 3, the court of the Pan and the nymphs, and anyway it goes on, and there's all pagan worship sort of stuff there. Now the gates of Hades was that big cave. And that cave, Flavius Josephus says, it was so deep that there was no cord that could measure the bottom of it. But from there is thought to be the spring that feeds the river Jordan. Abundance supply of water. Lots and lots of water. Lots of living water to give life to Jordan, anything on the banks of Jordan. Now look at this. Has anyone ever seen that before? That is, who's a paramedic here or nurse or something like this? No, that's okay. What is that emblem of? Yes, it is the World Health Organization's symbol. See that? What do we see? What do we see?
Serpent.
Serpent on a snake. And wouldn't we as good Christian people think, wow, healing, that comes from the Bible? When Moses said, when Moses was instructed to lift up the serpent in the wilderness, to construct the serpent in the wilderness, when Jesus was speaking to Nicodemus, Jesus said, just as Moses had said, the serpent had to be lifted up, Jesus had to be lifted up, so all who looked at Jesus would be healed. Now, I'm only going to give one little snippet to Satan this evening. Read the rest of this. The World Health Organization emblem. World Health Organization emblem was chosen by the first World Health Assembly in 1948. The emblem consists of the United Nations symbol, surmounted by a staff with a snake crawling around it. The staff with the snake has long been a symbol of medicine and medical profession. Well, us as Christians, we know that. The healing power of looking at the serpent. Read on. It originates from the story of Asclepius, this is what they're telling us, who was revered by the ancient Greeks as the god of healing, and whose cult involved the use of snakes. Can you see how so much is distorted? Asclepius, incidentally, was so successful at saving lives that the legend goes, Hades, remember the cave of Hades? Hades, the god of the underworld. Remember I told you, in that cave was many caverns, and they believed that that was the ins and outs, the goings of all the underworld figures. And it says, Hades, the god of the underworld, complained about him to the supreme god Zeus, who, fearing that the healer might make his humans immortal, killed Asclepius with a thunderbolt. Can you see how distorted the truth has become? That's the only little bit of advertising I'm going to give to the dark side tonight. We can turn that off now and save the batteries, because that's it. So when you study into the Bible, you can see when you really dig deep, it's all connected. Line upon line, precept upon precept. And the only way that you get to understand that is not just reading the Bible, but studying the Bible. Studying the Bible. So tonight is stop, revive, and thrive. And like our good brother said, we need to strive. We need to strive to enter in at the broad gate or the narrow gate. Broad is the way for others, narrow is for us. Have you ever felt like the woman at the well I was seeking for things that what? Would not satisfy? Truly. I felt like that sometimes. A long time ago. But now I'm very, very satisfied. Amen. Very satisfied in coming to that close connection with the Lord. Very, very satisfied. Can we turn our Bibles please to 2 Chronicles 7:14. Tonight is going to be like a boot camp for us to understand the opportunities that are available to us, for us if we stop. We shall be revived, and then we can take on the rest of the journey with gusto. 2 Chronicles 2 Chronicles 7:14. God is speaking here. Has everyone got a Bible? Does anyone need a Bible? Please, because if you need a Bible, it's a great way for you to engage. Engage. You know, some people, when it comes to church, have you heard church is boring? Sabbath school is boring. But why is it boring? Because people don't engage. I love Sabbath school. And I love church. The problem is that people used to go to church to meet with God. But now people are doing church and coming to meet each other. Church is seen just as a place for births, deaths, and marriages. Babies, you know, in certain churches dedicated to God. In other churches, you know, the babies, things happen with other, you know, the way they get baptized and so on. But you know, we come to church and there's babies dedicated to God. Couples come and commit their life to God in a church, yes. And then finally, when life is expired, we farewell. And that's being called hatched, matched, and dispatched. But my prayer is that we come to church for the right reasons. To come and worship our Maker. In the Bible it talks that in the synagogue, when they were out to get Jesus, that people came with stones in their pockets. I try to encourage congregations, people, leave your stones outside. And when you come to the church, you know the devil does not respect the doors of the church. Sadly, the devil creeps in. And my prayer always is that we consolidate our minds and our hearts and realise the reason that we have come into this place, whether it be tonight or tomorrow on the Sabbath day, is to come and worship our Maker. Okay, 2 Chronicles 7. 2 Chronicles 7. If my people, which are called by my name, shall what? Humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways. Let's stop there. Humble themselves. The word humble in the Hebrew is bending the knee in an act of subservience. In Psalm 23 it says, you anoint my head with oil. Do we understand the picture of anointing the head with the oil? Kings were anointed with oil. But do you know what also was anointed with oil? Sheep. Sheep, if they are left to their own devices, they would get worms in their noses that would drive them insane. Sheep would go and bash their heads against things just to try and get the insects out of their nose. The farmers, remember, back then the farmers didn't have herds of 25, 35, 45,000 sheep. You know, back then the shepherd would go in front of the sheep. Today, with motorbikes and horses and loud noises behind the sheep, driving the sheep. But long time ago, the shepherd was in such a close connection with his sheep, the shepherd would walk in front with his staff. Remember? That's how much he cared for the sheep. He knew his sheep that much. He knew when one was lost, yes? So, a shepherd caring for his sheep would put an oil onto the sheep's face, onto the nose, so that it would protect the animal from the insects getting in there. But what had to happen for that animal to get the full benefit of the oil on the face? The animal had to stand still, first of all. Doesn't the Lord tell us, be still and know that I am God? And the second thing that the animal had to do was lower the head in an act of humiliation and humbleness. That there is a message for us people, for us to be humble. Because unless the sheep lowered the head and the oil to run on its nose, the oil would be of no benefit. And that's how a caring shepherd would look after his sheep. So being humble. Can we go in our Bibles to Proverbs 6? Proverbs 6. Tell me, have we got a God of love? Do we serve a God of love?
Amen.
Do we serve a God that hates? He hates certain things. That's exactly right. Proverbs 6. Proverbs 6. Proverbs 6. We're reading from Proverbs 6, 16. There are 6 things that the Lord hates. Yes, 7 are an abomination unto Him. What is the very, very first thing that the Lord lists as He hates?
Proud.
A proud look. Is there anyone that would like a Bible if you haven't got a Bible? Please put your hand up because I'm sure one will land in your laps. Okay, that's fine. So, the Lord hates a proud look. What's the next thing? A lying tongue. The next thing? Hands that shed innocent blood. The next thing is a heart that deviseth wicked imaginations. Then feet that be swift to run into mischief. And then a false witness that speaks lies. And he that sows discord amongst brethren. They're the things that the Lord hates. But right at the very top of the list is a proud look. The Lord hates a proud look. You know where it says false witness? What's the commandment? It says, bear not false witness. What does that mean?
Lying, gossip.
Yeah, lying and gossip, that's correct as well. But you know what also false witness, if you pull that apart? It's not just about lying about someone. You know what it's also about? Many times, does anyone know what a lazy Susie is? You know lazy Susie? You go to eat and instead of getting up and moving around the place, you just spin and it just comes to you. You know, that's a lazy Susie. Do you know how many times we put people, when we get together, we put people on a lazy Susie and everyone spins around and has a go at them. And if you don't stop people in their tracks and say, stop brother, stop talking about so-and-so like that, that's also bearing false witness. That's also bearing false witness. So the Lord hates a proud look. So let's come our Bibles back to, where were we? 2 Chronicles 7. 2 Chronicles 7:14. If my people which are called by my name shall, first thing is humble themselves. Here's another question. Tell me truthfully, honestly, the Fijian church, when it comes time for foot washing, is the church always full? I've been to many, many churches, and when it comes to foot washing, it just seems to be that day that the church seems emptier. And you know, for me, that is a sadness. Because that's all about humbling yourself.
Amen.
In my early walk of Christianity, I was most probably... Actually, was I baptised at that stage? Maybe not. I was working in Townsville. And I went to a church for the Sabbath. And it was communion. And sometimes when people realise it's communion, oh no, I didn't trim my toenails or clean my feet or something. It's not about trimming your toenails, people. But anyway, I went to the church and I was paired off with, truly, he was a Papua New Guinean fellow, and I reckon he would have been one of the fuzzy, wuzzy angels from the Kokoda Trail. I have never seen feet so hard-worn as this man. And do you know, it was an amazing experience for me. Because I thought, Lord, what do I do here? And it truly was an amazing experience for me. But do you know that if we can humble ourselves to do the basest of things for the Lord's name, He will equip us to do the grand things.
Amen.
And it's just, here we get a bit funny when it comes to washing people's feet, but I love washing people's feet. But here we go again. Let me just talk. It's a Sabbath this evening. No one's in a rush, are they? Amen. You know, when it comes to foot washing, if ever I take foot washing service in this church.
We're having it tomorrow, Pastor.
Oh, yes, that's right. I wish I was doing it, but I'm not. But when I do the foot washing, there is one thing that I encourage. I cannot handle people talking about football or cars, Commodores or whatever it is, when it comes to foot washing. Because I think to myself, when Jesus washed the feet of the disciples, and then he came to Judas, if I was washing Judas's feet, do you know how harshly I would have washed his feet? But Jesus poured out everything to try and reach Judas. He even tried to reach Judas in the garden when he called him friend. But you know, when it comes to foot washing, and please, I'm not trying to upset anyone here, but when it comes to foot washing, there's too much blah, blah, blah goes on. When we should consolidate our minds and our hearts and realize the pattern that was set before us when it comes to foot washing. So I forgot you had foot washing there tomorrow, and Pastor Zenny didn't tell me to tell you that. But please remember the solemnness of the occasion, because there is a grander blessing when you can put your mind back into a time when Jesus washed the feet of the disciples. Alright, let's keep going. So, if my people humble themselves, and what's the very next thing? If my people pray, it says. They humble themselves first. You know, there is a very divine order of service here. They need to humble themselves first. Then they need to pray. Can you pray honestly, penitently from your heart if you're not humble? No. That's why the Lord says first, we serve a Lord of order, not a Lord of confusion. Hence why the Lord didn't put humble, pray, seek into a bag and shake it up and all of a sudden humble came out. No. The Lord put humble there for a reason. We need to humble ourselves first, because how can you be full of pride and then go and pray? What's the outcome of that? The outcome of that is the publican and the Pharisee. The Pharisee came, how? Proud he was. And the publican came not so much as even to lift his head. And who went down to their house justified? The publican, the Lord said. The publican was despised of people back then. You know what the publicans did? They were like the tax collectors, They used to sort of buy the taxes. They were the debt collector type of people. And who likes them? No one likes them. Any debt collectors here? Sorry, I've got to be careful what I say. Alright, so humble themselves, and if my people pray. When it comes to praying penitently to the Lord, honestly, sincerely to the Lord, is the ultimate testimony of your inability and your faith in God's ability. We put things into perspective. I was going to bring to you tonight a little video I have. Oh, it's really groovy little video. And what it starts is like this. If you have a little drone, and the drone is hovering over the car park here. And, outside, if we're all there together, it starts here. And then the drone goes higher and higher and higher. And what happens when it goes higher and higher? We become, I know we don't shrink, but it looks to that. We become in perspective to the rest of the world, don't we? We think we're so important sometimes. We really, really do. But then, when you compare, and I've got this video, it's really, really good. And what it does, the drone goes up and up and up and up and up into space, and then it starts with the planets. Now, Earth is a big place, isn't it? But to these big stars, Megatorius, Saturnus, whatever they're called, there's some pretty big stars there. We're big planets. We are like a little ball bearing compared to a big ball. You know what I'm saying? Have you ever seen those things? It puts things into perspective. It puts things into perspective. We need sometimes to be put into perspective. So, if people shall humble themselves, and if they pray, and what's the next thing? Seek my face. Seek my face. What does Matthew 6:33 say? Seek first what? The kingdom of God. We seek a lot of things, don't we? We seek a lot of things, but we need to seek the kingdom of God. Here's the question. If I ask this question, I'm not sure if I've asked this question to the Fijian church. Has anyone lost their keys lately? Anyone ever lost a set of keys? No? Anyone, please? It's not a sin to lose your keys, so you can answer me. Has anyone ever lost a set of keys?
Yes.
Car keys! Where's my car keys? What do you do? Do you just sit there and go, okay. What do you do? You look for them, but do you just look for them? Or what do? You get panic, but you start to search, don't you? The place looks like it's been ransacked by a thief by the time you're finished if you're really earnestly looking for your keys. That is the way that we need to seek the Lord. We look for our keys and turn the place upside down and spend hours. Or, if a lady loses a piece of jewellery, but that's in the Bible too, Luke 15. Luke 15, she lost something that was precious. And I haven't got time to go there tonight, but if you read there that the sheep was lost carelessly, let's have a little bit of grass here. And then the lady lost, when you look at that story, it's a little bit of jewellery from her hair, from the dowry that was paid for her wedding. So no wonder she was looking for it really, really keenly. But people, we spend so much time looking for a set of keys or a piece of something. Our phones, we lost our phones. I lose my glasses. Then I need my glasses to look for my glasses. But we should be seeking the Lord so eagerly. But many times we don't. We just glean over the top. I said to you people, I know, and I'm looking at the young people here, because I was asked to talk to the young people at the Logan Church once before. And I was asked to speak on the Bible and the interesting of the Bible. And when I started with, I said, people read the Bible and they see black and white, don't you? You see black and white and red, obviously if it's a red letter Bible. But I said to you the other night, when I read the Bible, I'm full panoramic colour. And you know what verse I always go to? When Paul and Silas were in the jail. And try and explain that. And you put your mind into there. That's why people, I don't find the Bible boring. If you just read the Bible like a cartoon strip or a newspaper, you will find the Bible boring. But if you delve into the words and the meanings and put your mind into the context of the way that the Lord intended when He inspired holy men with the Holy Spirit, when He inspired men to write the Bible, trust me, you'll get so much more out of it. So, humble themselves, pray, and seek my face. And what's the very, very next thing? Turn from their wicked ways. I know, I look around and I think, these Fijian, there's no one in this Fijian room that could be wicked in any way. But when we sit there and start to think about it, what are the things that separate us from God? Is there anything in your life that separates you from God? From one Sabbath to the next, I oftentimes say, people erect false altars. When there was a cleansing, back in Gideon's time, Hezekiah's time, what did they do? They used to go and knock the altars down that were made. What are the altars that you construct from one Sabbath to the next? So, humble, pray, seek my face, turn from the wicked ways. And then, that's us, what's God going to do? And it says, then I will what?
Hear.
I will hear you from heaven. I will hear you from heaven. Is God deaf?
No.
Not at all. God is far from deaf. Do you know God can hear our words when they're still in our minds, the Bible tells us, before they even come out of our mouth? Is that not scary? God heard Samson in the temple of, where was Samson? Temple of Dagon. Samson was in the temple of Dagon. And you know what he said to the young lad? When he was, you know the story. Do you know the story of Samson? What happened? Samson, eyes at the end of the day, Delilah and all that sort of thing. You know what the word Delilah means? Here we go. Does anyone know what the word Delilah means? I love it. I love all words, Does anyone know what the word Delilah means? Rocking to sleep. Lulling to sleep. What happened to Samson? It says in the Bible, he fell asleep on her knee like a little baby. Hey, big, strong Samson fell asleep on Delilah's knee. And that's exactly what Delilah means. just horrendous. And then we know what happened. Philistines got him, off with the hair, you know, and then they plucked his eyes out as well. But you know what is so profound in the Bible? Let's go there quickly, very quickly. Judges, Book of Judges. Book of Judges. Book of Judges. Where am I here? Here, Book of Judges. Book of Judges. Book of Judges 16. Book of Judges 16. Book of Judges 16, 26. The Book of Judges 16 and 26. Now, I'll just give you a little hint. You know why I repeat myself so many times? Because my wife always says to me, you go too fast. And you don't give the people the time to even look at the Bible. So that's why I repeat it a few times. It's just a little something I use. Anyway, where are we? Judges 16? 16, 26. And Samson said unto the lad. Now before this, what's happened is this. The Philistines brought Samson into the temple of Dagon for a little bit of sport. And Judges 16:26 reads like this. And Samson said unto the lad that held him by the hand, he says, suffer me that I may feel the pillars whereupon the house stands. What does that tell you? Tell me what it says. He's blind. Yeah, he's blind. Hey, listen, show me where the pillars are. But what business did a judge of the Israelites have knowing where the pillars of the temple of Dagon are? That tells me he's been in that temple before. And I don't think he was just in that temple once. Because I go to places and I can't remember anything. My wife has got an uncanny knack for furniture. Ladies, who's into furniture? Yeah, I know you are. And they can go into a room and then talks about the furniture there and the furniture. I think, I don't even look at the furniture. I wouldn't even know. I've got to go into a place 20 times before I realise. I wouldn't make a good detective. But Samson, I reckon, was in the temple of Dagon more than once. Because he had so much degenerated. And so now he tells the lad he's blind and he says, put my arms around the pillar that holds up, the pillars that hold up this place. So that was dead giveaway. Samson, you've been there somewhere where you shouldn't have been. But anyway, let's keep reading. And he reads on, and now the house was full of men and women, and all the lords of the Philistines were there. And there were upon them the roof about 1,000 men and women, 3,000, sorry, that beheld while Samson made sport. So they were trying to make a bit of a show. But little did they know what was about to happen. Now listen here, verse 28. Verse 28. And Samson called unto the Lord God. It says here, Samson called unto the Lord and said, O Lord God, remember me, I pray thee, and strengthen me, I pray thee, only this once, O God. When Samson started to speak like that, Samson petitioned God with the three most intimate terms of God. He used the word Adonai. You've heard the word Adonai? That means most high, master of the household, most exalted. Then he called on the name Yahweh, which means Redeemer and keeping power. And then he called on the name Elohim. And Elohim means strength, power, and ability. No wonder he used the most three intricate terms of God. Adonai, Yahweh, and Elohim. Because guess what? He needed some strength now to pull these pillars down. Did God hear him in the temple of Dagon? Yes. You know what that tells me, brothers and sisters? That's very encouraging to me. Because sometimes people think they're not good enough to go to church. For whatever reason. And Samson had done a lot of things and strayed from the Lord. But for the Lord to hear a penitent prayer from the temple of Dagon tells me, people, no matter how far you have strayed, wherever you have gone, if you turn and humble yourself, isn't that what Samson did? He was so full of himself before. It says that he picked up the gates and the posts of the Philistine city. And it was numbered 700 pounds. That's a lot of kgs, isn't it? That's 300 kgs. Samson was so full of himself. But Samson is brought to a place where he has humbled himself. Did he pray? He prayed to God. Do you know, if you look at the life of Samson, he only prayed but another 2 times. It doesn't show Samson as a big prayer. Samson only prayed 2 other times if you look through the book of Judges. But here he is right now. But you know, it is a good thing to pray to God in a time of trouble, yes? But you know, it's a real pity that we ignore God many other times. When the time gets tough, you know, it doesn't say there are no atheists in foxholes. Is it foxholes? Yeah, no atheists in foxholes. You know, like when the bombs are going, that's what they call foxholes, where people are there. I had this article, and there was a survey done of people who believe in God and they call on God, and people who don't believe in God and they call on God. And the question was asked, if you are in the middle of the water and you might hear dun, 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 and then you see a fin, and the fin starts to circle you. You know how many people in the survey who were not believers of God said that they would pray? Hey? Why just pray then in time of trouble? God is not a vending machine.
Amen.
God is not a vending machine that you go and put something in and something comes out. That's exactly right. Just made a note. Sorry. So anyway, let's keep going. So our friend Samson, when he was in there, he did humble himself, he did pray, and he sought the face of the Lord. He didn't have a great deal of time to turn from his wicked ways. But I reckon he had time to think. Don't you think? When his eyes were taken out and he was in bondage, he would have had a lot of time to think. So I do believe that in that time that he turned from his wicked ways, he did what 2 Chronicles 7:14 tells us. Now let's go to the next part of 2 Chronicles 14. Okay, it says, and if you do that, then I will hear from heaven. We were just talking about hearing from heaven. It says, I will hear from heaven, and I will what? Forgive their sin. Are we there? 2 Chronicles 7:14. It says, if you humble, pray, seek, turn, then I will hear from heaven, and I will forgive their sin, and what's the next words? I will heal their land. Heal their land. I believe that is as much a part of thriving as anything else. I will heal their land. Let's keep going now, 2 Chronicles to 2 Chronicles 20. 2 Chronicles 20. Very quickly, 2 Chronicles 20. What's the time? 2 Chronicles 20. 2 Chronicles 20 verse 1. 2 Chronicles 20 verse 1. It came to pass after this also that the children of Ammon, and with them beside the Ammonites, came against Jehoshaphat to battle. Then there came some that told Jehoshaphat, saying, there comes a great multitude against thee from beyond the sea on this side of Syria. And behold, they be in Hazazon Tamar, which is in En-Gedi. And Jehoshaphat, what happened? He feared, yes? And then he set himself to do what?
Seek the Lord.
People, is anyone following along? He set himself to seek the Lord. What does the word set mean? Does anyone know anything about sharpening a sword? Obviously not. You do? Okay, but there's one very, very important thing when you sharpen a sword. It's not just a matter of getting a file to it. When you sharpen a sword, if you just get a file to it and sharpen the teeth really sharp, and you go to cut, you know what happens? The sword gets jammed. What you need to do is to set the sword. And it's a little tool, it's a crimping tool. And you go along the sword this way, tum, 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 every second tooth. then you turn the saw around and you use your saw set again and you go and crimp. And you know what it does to the teeth? It does that. That's what's called setting a saw. And that gives it the cutting ability to slice through the timber. Because if it was one piece of steel that was sharp, it would get caught. We are told to set our minds on things above, not on things below. We are told to set our minds on to be Christ-like. So we need to set our minds. So here it goes. Jehoshaphat feared and set himself to seek the Lord. Setting himself to seek the Lord. Can you tell me what gave strength to Daniel when Daniel was taken away from his home and he was in the Babylonian kingdom?
Prayer.
Prayer is one thing, you're very right. Prayer is one thing, but the Bible in Daniel 1:8 tells me that Daniel purposed in his heart not to defile himself. So if you wake up in the morning, you know how you need to wake up in the morning like this? When you wake up in the morning and you throw your feet around the bed and your feet touch the ground, you know what Satan needs to think? Oh no, not him again. And that's the way that we need to be as bold Christians. When we wake up in the morning, from the very, very first we wake up. You know, it was Martin Luther. Martin Luther, unless he prayed for a few hours a day, he couldn't get through his duties. You know, some of us are hard pressed to, you know, if you eat 3 times a day, 2 times a day, some people eat 10 times a day, but as long as you pray, that's a good thing. But you know what Deuteronomy 8 or Deuteronomy 10:8 says? That when you are finished eating and your belly is full, give glory to the Lord as well.
Amen.
Give glory to the Lord. And some people, their prayer life generally is maybe grace, but very, very first thing in the morning. Why first thing in the morning? Do you know that's biblical? In the Bible, it says early in the morning. Early in the morning. If you read early in the morning, many people woke up early in the morning. Why? Because the mind is fresh. You have not been bombarded with all the toils of the day. Tell me, when do you feel freshest? In the morning or in the night time? You know, I see people, their eyes are starting to close a little bit, and please forgive me. I mean, maybe we could have started at 3 o'clock this morning. I love 3 o'clock in the mornings. I love it. I'm a very early morning riser. But the Lord tells us early in the morning. That's for our benefit, people. No dogs barking when they're asleep. No telephones ringing. Nothing. Everything is quiet. I love it. And that's the time when you need to come into communion with the Lord. Less distractions. And that way it'll be effective prayer. Doesn't the Bible talk about the fervent prayer of a righteous man? Doesn't it talk about effective prayer? Anyway. But can I also say this? You don't just have to close your eyes to pray. Because I pray while I'm driving. Can you imagine if I close my eyes while I was driving and praying? I pray. Pray, people, pray. Connect with the Lord. Pray. 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 And you know when you've prayed enough, it's time to pray some more. Connect yourself with the Lord, because that's the only way that you will be revitalised from the inside out. That's called microwaving, you know, from the inside out. Pray and pray and pray. Okay, where were we? 2 Chronicles 20. Anyway, Jehoshaphat feared and he set himself to seek the Lord and proclaimed the fast. Here we go. Can anyone tell me what the benefit of fasting is? And I know you look at me and you think, whoa, this guy eats well. But I'm getting back to it, but I can fast and I do fast. But do you know what the principle of fasting is? A lot of people don't realise what the principle of fasting is. Does anyone understand the principle of fasting? The principle of fasting is this. From the Lord's selected food group, to eat from the food group, is it lawful or unlawful? It's lawful. Am I scaring you? Please talk. It's lawful to eat from the Lord's lawful group of foods. It's very lawful. So the whole idea of fasting is this. If you can overcome the will, because it says also in Proverbs, the man that can conquer the will of his heart, he's the one who can take a city. Now remember, Samson took the gates of the city. That was ultimate insult to the Philistines. But he had no willpower. He was drawn around like nothing, lullabied to sleep. But the man who can conquer his will over the things that are lawful, you know what that does? That equips you so much more to have conquer over the things that are unlawful. It's training ground. Do you need me to say that again? Fasting prepares you for tackling the bigger things. Fasting. And it's a way to subdue the will. If you can stop doing something that's lawful, it equips you so much more when you face the things that are unlawful. It strengthens the will. The same thing as the word temptation. Tell me what comes to your mind as soon as the word temptation comes to your mind. Temptation, what does come to mind? Sin. Everyone thinks sin. Do you know temptation is as much an opportunity to sin against the Lord as much as it is an opportunity to glorify God? Every time we think of the word sin, we think of the negative connotation. But when sin comes your way, if you do not succumb to sin, who are you glorifying? Amen! You're glorifying God. Okay, anyway, enough. Let's keep going. Jehoshaphat, he set his face to seek the Lord and he proclaimed a fast throughout Judah. And it goes on, and right down the bottom, verse 9. If when an evil comes, because he's talking to the Lord and he's glorifying the Lord, and it says, if when an evil come upon us, as the sword, judgment, pestilence, or famine, we stand before his house, and in thy presence, for thy name is in this house, and cry unto thee in our affliction. What did it say? Then you will hear us. Go over now to 2 Chronicles 20:20. I call this 2020 vision. 20:20. It says, now this is really weird. For anyone in their humanness, they'll think, what are these people doing? If you had to go to battle, against an army, who would you send in first? Spies, you had to suss them out because it says which king, if he goes into an army, very good. Which king, if he goes to battle, doesn't survey the enemy first? That's biblical. But you've already surveyed them. You know they're powerful. What are you going to do next? I'd be sending the big fellas in. The Arthurs of the world, young Zach, all the big strong men that are in here. I'd be sending them first. But what did these people do? You know what they did? They sent the choir in. Yeah, have a look at this. 2 Chronicles 20:20. And they rose early in the morning and went forth into the wilderness of Tekoa. And as they went forth, Jehoshaphat stood and said, hear me, O Judah, and you inhabitants of Jerusalem. Believe in the Lord your God, so shall you be what? Established. Believe his prophets. What does it say? So shall you what? Why don't we use the word thrive? Now look what happens. And when he had consulted with the people, he appointed who?
Singers.
Whoa, he appointed the singers unto the Lord, that they should praise the beauty of his holiness, as they went out before the army. He sent the choir in. Now, who in their right mind would send the choir in? This gives me a little picture of Gideon. Gideon had how many men in his army? Come on, good Bible students. 300? No, that's when he finished up with 300. He didn't start with 300. He started with 32,000. And he was against 185,000. Now, if you do the numbers, that's about, it's very big odds, 185 to 32,000 is 1 in 6 or something. But hang on a second, what did the Lord say to Gideon? You got too many people. If I was Gideon, I'd say, God, are you serious? He's got 185,000. I've got 32,000, and you think I've got too many? And the Lord said, you got too many people. Because guess what? If you win, the people think, well, they're real heroes. Each person took 6 people on and they were like ninja warriors. But then what did the Lord say? Thin them down. And how many left? 10,000. No, Another 10,000. And they were reduced to 10,000, sorry. And from the 10,000 they were reduced to how many? 300. And when they were reduced to 300, the Lord said, yeah, that's about the right number to take on this 185,000. Wow. If I was Gideon, I used to play soccer. And I was the captain of the soccer team. And I used to pick all the strongest ones, all the best ones. You. So, when I think God would say to me, Arturo, you got too many people, and He reduced me to 300, I'd be starting to sweat. Unless I trusted in the Lord. And Gideon trusted in the Lord, and what happened? You know the rest of the story. People use that story to put kids to sleep with, Uncle Arthur's bedtime stories, yeah, that's what the children are sleeping with. But those stories are there to build confidence in us. Anyway, let's keep going. So, it says here, verse 21, and when he had consulted with the people, he appointed singers unto the Lord, and they should praise the beauty of His holiness. Then they went out before the army, and to say, praise the Lord, praise Him, for His mercy endureth forever. And when they began to sing and to praise, the Lord sorted it out, didn't He? Amen. The Lord sorted it out. Began to sing. Seldom has the world seen such a battle as this. Men singing hymns of praise to God as the attack is about to happen. The people were living their faith, weren't they? Amen. They were going and trusting in the Lord because they believed that the Lord would conquer. The Lord promised victory, and you know what, people? The people took Him at His word. Very quickly, let's go to 2 Peter. 2 Peter 1. 2 Peter 1. I am equipping you people tonight to go forwards as conquerors. We are more than what? Conquerors. We are more than conquerors. We are victors. But sometimes we act as the ones who have been conquered. 2 Peter 1. Are we there yet? 2 Peter in our Bibles. 2 Peter 1. Has anyone ever heard of Peter's ladder? Yes. Yes. I've mentioned it. You've heard it. Yeah, I preached it. Yeah, many years ago. Good memories, son. Peter's ladder. 2 Peter 1. 2 Peter's 1. And Peter's ladder, where did it go? It went from, in Jacob's dream, Genesis. In Jacob's dream, the ladder went from where? From earth to heaven. And who was standing at the top? It says God. And the angels were descending backwards and forwards. So here we go, we've got Peter's ladder here. 2 Peter 1. 2 Peter 1, 3. According as His divine power hath given us unto all things that pertain unto life. All things that pertain unto life. We've been given everything that gives us life. And in John 10:10 it says, life more abundant. What's the word picture of abundant in the Greek? Does anyone know what the word picture of abundant is in the Greek? The word abundance in the Greek is when the rain is pouring down so heavy and the gutters can't take it. What happens with that? The water overflows. That's the way the Lord is for us. Isn't that a beautiful picture? You ever been in a storm where the gutters don't keep up and it just overflows everything? That's what the Lord wants us for life. More abundant and free. So it goes on here, it says, all things that pertain unto life. Some people go to the gymnasiums and they want to get really healthy. Some ladies use oil of Ulan, to try and look younger for longer. Walt Disney. You've heard of Walt Disney? What happened to Walt Disney when he died? Does anyone know? Walt Disney, listen, I'm not going to now stand here and I'm a vegetarian, but I've got nothing against eating meat, so please don't hear me wrong here. Okay? So please, I'll cook for my son and he loves it and there's no issue. I've not done here, so please. Excuse me. So what I was going to say was, has anyone understood meat when it's cryovac? You heard of cryovac? It's sort of, and it's just there. Walt Disney, at the moment, he's somewhere over there in America. It's called cryogenics. You've heard of cryogenics? Walt Disney, true story. There's a casket, there's something with Walt Disney's name on. And he thought that come time with technology, the further technology goes, that one day, is someone wanting to come in here? No. Walt Disney thought with cryogenics, please, this is very serious. Walt Disney's hope in a resurrection was in science, because he thought one day I'm going to be brought back to life. So he's on the freezer somewhere. He's not waiting because he's got no idea. It says they know nothing. And he's not waiting. Stop it. His body is in a freezer somewhere. And for the sake that one day he's going to be thawed out. And how sad. How sad. That's where his hope was. My hope is in Jesus Christ, people. My hope is in Jesus Christ, and he's going to come back one day. He's going to call me by my name, and he's going to take me home where I can walk the streets of God. And you know how many times I've said this? I'm not just saying this because my little sister is here. But I've said that I can't wait to get to heaven where the girls in my family can walk the streets in peace and in harmony, and we don't have to be worried about them. Isn't that a very content, blessed, peaceful place to be? I'm looking forward to heaven. I'm looking so forward to heaven. Anyway, Peter's letter. Come on. Are we there? Yep. And so all the things that pertain unto good life. So godliness through the knowledge of him that hath called us unto glory and virtue. So we're in 2 Peter 1:3. Verse 4. Whereby are given unto us exceedingly great and precious promises. Could not talk on hours for that. That by these you might be partakers of the divine nature, having escaped the corruption that is in this world through lust. Now listen, here's the ladder, guys. We're going to climb it rung by rung. And beside this, giving all diligence, add to your faith what? What is virtue? Come on, what's virtue? You know, isn't it nice to have a virtuous woman? That's of good character. But hey, it's just as good to have a virtuous man as well. When we come talking virtuous, you know, in Psalms 30 it talks about the woman being a virtuous woman, but we need to be a virtuous man as well. You know, when a lady dresses very seductively, we think, oh, look at that, you know, look at this lady, the way she's dressed. Very seductively, not virtuous. But you know what makes me sad? When I see in what happens under the umbrella of Christianity, it might be a religious hook, but it has seductive bait on it. And that's the way that Satan works. He wants to draw us away from any worship to God. And that's why you see sometimes, you know, in worship styles, and I'm going to say this, sometimes in worship styles, when they come to meet their Maker, they jump around like they're animals that were sacrificed. And I think to myself, is that the way to come and meet the Lord? It's a disgusting, disgraceful way. You know, when it comes to worship, I know it's not a sermon in itself, but when it comes to worship, Cain and Abel, one brought something that was acceptable. One brought something that was not acceptable. And we should be very, very careful when we come into the house of the Lord. Amen. We should be very, very careful. So, let's keep going. So, add to your faith virtue. And add to your virtue what? Knowledge. Are we there? Come on, 2 Peter 1:5. Add to your faith virtue. People, this is a divine order again. God didn't just put this all in a hat, jumble it around and got all of these, you know, angels to pick one out. No, God ordered this. And faith, virtue, next thing was knowledge. After knowledge what? Temperance. And to temperance what? Patience. Do we have patience? You know, microwave ovens have sped up the time of conventional cooking by about 100. And how many of us still sit there going like this, waiting for the microwave to cook? We are impatient. You know, if you've ever seen a white utility, dual cab, registration 608 TAB, and a set of lights moving backwards and forwards, I'm trying to trigger something, you know? I think if I keep moving backwards and forwards, I used to do that a lot. I don't do that as much anymore. I did it the other day. I thought hopefully there's a little loopy and they'll pick me up and the lights will turn. But we're very impatient, aren't we? We are. We want it here and now. Remember I said the other night, that's the Greek mentality. That's where lay-by came in, from the Greek mentality. We want it now. Pay for it later on, but we want it now. And some will pay for it later on. So, patience. And to patience, what do you add? Godliness. And to godliness, what do you add? Brotherly kindness. Oh, here we go. Couldn't we speak on the house about that one? But I won't. I know you want to go home. Brotherly kindness. Do you understand brotherly kindness? What did Cain say to God when God said, "Where is your brother?" Am I my brother's keeper? Could you imagine, people, if we were a little bit more our brother's keeper and worried about the next person? I do not believe we came from apes. It is diametrically opposed to creation. Now, there are Christian people out there thinking we came from apes. I have no idea what version of the Bible they read. But I thought, if we ever had to come from an animal, this is cute. Wouldn't it be nice if we came from the little lovebirds? Have you seen the lovebirds? They just sit there in a cage and all day. You know, they're just so nice and kind to each other. You know, sometimes we are vegetarian cannibals. It's the truth of the story. We are vegetarian cannibals sometimes when it comes to our brothers and sisters. You know, we're big into the vegetarianism, but when it comes to eat our brothers, we eat them alive. Anyway, keep going. And to godliness, brotherly kindness, and to brotherly kindness, what's that word?
Charity.
What does that word charity mean? Love, exactly. But it's not just love. Oh, here we go, another word, love. Who loves ice cream? I know you don't want to put your hand. Amen, we've got one honest person. Who loves chocolate? Who loves pasta? Who loves taro? What do you people eat? No one put their hand up. You're scared to put your hand up. What do you eat? Taro?
Yeah.
Oh, here we go. Now they love taro. So we say we love taro. We love pasta. We love chocolate. We love this. And then on the same words we say we love God. Different level of love, people. You know, on the radio today, you turn on the radio and all you hear is, "Baby, I love you, baby. Baby, I love you, baby. Baby, I love you, baby." But that's all you hear, isn't it? But it's a disgrace. There is so much hate in the world. Do you know how many peace monuments have been erected in the world since the world wars? There are so many monuments of peace, yet the world is killing themselves because they don't understand the word love. They use the word for chocolate. Yes, dear, chocolate. But when it comes to the word divine, you know, you have ice creams named divine. You know, marketing people use the word divine for ice cream. We're just really losing the plot, people. That's why this week, if I have not night by night drawn you closer to the Lord, drawn you closer connection with Jesus Christ, I've done a disservice. I like to think every night I have built on that, for you to keep your eyes fixed on the Lord. Turn your eyes upon... I sing, I love to sing. Not that I can sing, but I love to sing. Turn your eyes upon Jesus. Look, do you know the song? Well, you can help me out. Look full in His wonderful face. And what's the very next words? And the things of earth will grow strangely dim in the light of His glory and grace. The things of earth will grow strangely dim, people, when you turn, I won't sing it again, but when you turn your eyes upon Jesus. Amen. Turn your eyes upon Jesus. But let's keep reading, because that's not all. Peter's ladder, we've climbed it one by one. We've got to the agape love at the top. Not the filial love and the erotica love. You know, there's three different types of love, but you guys understand that. There's, you know, brother to brother, brother to woman, and then God to His people. And it says in verse 8, "For if these things be in you," that you just climbed up the ladder, "and abound, they make you that you shall neither be," what's the word?
Barren.
Barren. Is that not thriving? It says here that you shall not be barren, nor what? Guys, I'm the only one in the room to get excited about this. Are you not excited by this? It says, if you climb run by run, and you get to the very, very top in the order that the Lord has asked you to go, and the top rung is charity, which is love, the agape love. If you've got there seriously from the bottom, applying all these other things, faith, virtue, godliness, brotherly love, patience, temperance, when you got to love, it's sincere love. And the Lord says, if you do these things, you shall not be barren. People, there's the keys for stop, revive and thrive. It says you shall not be unfruitful. But keep reading on in the knowledge of our Lord Jesus Christ. But he that lacketh these things is blind and cannot see afar off. Verse 10. Wherefore, the rather, brethren, Give diligence to make your calling and election what? Sure. If you do these things, you shall never fall.
Amen.
How does Jude finish? Unto him that is able to keep you from falling. To present you faultless before God. Unto him that keep you from falling. You've heard the story of the rich young ruler. What did the Lord say to the rich young ruler? He says, you lack one thing. The Lord said, you lack one thing, go and sell. Does the Lord want us all to be on the unemployment line, barren and getting food stamps too? No, no, no. But the rich young ruler, he said, I have kept the Sabbath, I've kept the commandments, I've done this since then, look how good I am, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this. You know what the Lord said to him? You lack one thing. We can come to church week by week. We can be really, really good. But if you don't have the connection with the Lord, you're lost. You're lost. And so the Lord said to him, you lack one thing. And that one thing is that connection with Jesus. Because everything else will be nothing. Let me tell you very, very quickly. Before I got married, true story. Actually, not before I got married. Before I actually found the Lord, I used to do this. I used to go to the teller machine, if not every night. True story. Honest, true story. I used to go to the teller machine, if not every night, every second or third night, just to see how much money I had in the bank. Please, it's not a joke, it's the truth. I used to go and look how much money I had in the bank. Do you know, once I came to know the Lord, I hardly go to ever check what's in there, because the Lord provides. Amen. The Lord provides. But I was so hung up on looking at the number. Ooh, it made me feel good. I lacked one thing. Here's another thing. Mary and Martha. Mary and Martha. What was Martha doing when she had the encounter with Jesus and Mary and Martha? Serving. But she had prepared lots and lots and lots of things. What did Jesus say to Martha? And actually he said all this, I love it. Martha, Martha, not just Martha, Martha is like this. Martha, Martha. What did he say to Martha? Come on, Bible students. He said, Mary has chosen that one good thing. Do you know what that means? That's why I get excited, and you're not, but you're going to get excited in a second. Martha was really, really busy cooking. And who loves, I don't like the word potluck lunch. It sounds terrible. I love fellowship lunch. What do you call it here? Just lunch. No, don't call it potluck lunch. That's like a lucky dip. And maybe sometimes people think it's a lucky dip what gets served. Fellowship lunch, please. So we have fellowship lunch. When you come to fellowship lunch, tell me if I'm the only person that does that. You walk past the table and you have a look what's there first. So you know, Zach, do you do it? Yeah, there you go. Bang, you got the hit. I do it. It's honestly, when I go to fellowship lunch, I have a very quick look on the table what's there, so I know where I'm going. This is true story. No, I do that, but no, this is a true story what I'm trying to tell you. I'm bringing the Bible to life, people. The Bible is not stagnant. The Bible is full of life. The Word is life. So when Jesus said to Martha, Martha, Mary has chosen that one good thing. If you break the connotation up in the Greek, you know it says, Mary has chosen the delicacy on the table.
Amen.
He was speaking Martha's language. Because you can cook everything, it's all beautiful food, but trust me, there's always a delicacy. Everyone's got their own thing. You might like dal leaves, and I do like dal leaves. But there's something else that I don't like. And so one thing will be a delicacy for me. And that's what Jesus said to Martha. Mary has chosen the one thing which is the delicacy. And who was the delicacy? Jesus. Ta-da! Do you understand that?
Amen.
Caleb and Joshua. How old was Caleb when he... Caleb. How old was Caleb? Caleb and Joshua. Does anyone know what the word Caleb means? Oh, come on. I feel so alone sometimes. Caleb and Joshua. How many people came out of the Exodus? Well, you're right. 2 at that end. But at the other end there was, 600,000 men. And they all fell by the wayside, remember? And only 2 went into the promised land. 2 went into the promised land from the original. 2. And their names were Caleb and Joshua. Do you know what Caleb means? Caleb, well, you say Caleb, then you're Fijian, but I say Caleb. And Caleb means the faith. Listen to this. Caleb means the faith of a dog. Stop there. Don't think of dog. Think of the faith of a dog. Who's got a dog? I know my little niece has got a dog. Is he faithful to you? Even though you don't like him, you push him away, does he keep coming back to you? You just owned up that you don't like him. But see, the little dog keeps coming back to you, doesn't he? Caleb was faithful. Do you understand? You've heard about the story about the dog on the tucker box. He sat and sat and sat and waited. I've got a story that I share in Italy, from the mother country, of a dog that used to go to the church with his owner. It was a lady, and she passed away. And do you know that dog every day at the same time goes to the church? The dog goes to the church. And we get hard pressed going to the church sometimes. But the dog goes faithfully to the church. But Caleb means the faith of a dog. It's the attributes of a dog. Now you know Caleb, when it was time for him to get a portion of land, what section of land did Caleb ask for? We won't go into bold because I know it's getting late. But what did he ask for? Oh, come on. He was 85 years old. He put up his old 85-year-old arm, and you know what he said to Joshua? Give me the mountains where the giants are. I've still got some unfinished business to do with them.
Amen.
Is that not thriving? Man, that is a person who's... And you know what it says in the Bible why Joshua and Caleb went through, especially Caleb? It says because he was wholly committed to the Lord. Holy. W-H-O-L-L-Y. You know, we are really big on immersion. You know, baptism by immersion. It doesn't say, or your strength, or your might, or your power, you know. But what about after baptism? We should still wholly commit our lives to the Lord. Yes? Okay, I'll speed it up. I can see people are getting anxious, and we're about to go. Luke 15, don't go there, Luke 15, prodigal son. Tell me, what was the key to the prodigal son coming back? Luke 15 tells us, there's one particular verse in Luke 15 when it talks about the prodigal son. The very, very key verse, the hinge. The hinge that was to his success. What does it say? It says he came to his senses. Have you ever heard someone say that? Come to your senses. He was sitting there and it says he came to himself. You're right, he remembered. He sat there and he thought, whoa, when I was back in my father's house, I ate well. Quick story about my son because he's not here. And don't you go telling him I said this. My son moved out of house. And when he moved out of house, my wife could not even be home to see him take his stuff out. It was heartbreaking. I was very upset. I actually helped him move some stuff. And I was broken man because he thought, oh, you know, he's going to be a conqueror. You know, he's going out there. And I said to my wife, he'll last 4 weeks. He lasted 5.5. And he was back home. But in that time, in the 4 weeks, he came home and he brought home one night some meat for my wife to cook. The meat was that tough. I don't know what beast it came off from, but it was the cheapest. No, I'm just trying to, again, to put things into context. That's why I say I bring things alive. He brought this meat home that was the cheapest cut of meat possible. I have no idea what it was. And I don't know what it was. But my wife cooked it, and I looked at it, and my wife said, it's so tough, it's so tough. And I said, no, let him eat it. Let him eat it. I want him to realise, because when he was at home, under the father's roof, he ate rib fillet. You know? But now that he's out there doing it on his own, and he left the father's house, you know, my wife could have put one of my boots in the water, and when the boot was cooked and soft, the meat still would have been hard. But you know why I'm telling you this? Leave the father's house and see what happens. And it's when he came to himself. When my son came to himself, when did he come back? He came home. He came home, that's a beautiful thing. You know, snoring. Who hates the noise of snoring? Exactly, my wife does too. That's why I sleep somewhere else. But, do you know, when my son was in my house and snoring, I was a happy man. I would hear my son lying in the bed snoring. I better be quiet because I start to cry. But I hear him snoring, and that snoring was music to my ears because he was in the Father's house, safe and sound.
Amen.
Do you see how snoring offends some people, but to another one is happy? You understand that? That's called trash and treasure, isn't it?
Amen.
So, it says he came to himself. Here's not a quick one. It's a really, really hot day. Really, really hot day. And I'm thirsty for water at the moment, and I'll drink when I'm finished. So it's a hot day. And if it's a really, really hot day, and I have a glass of water, and I've got a nice, cool glass of water, big, tall glass of water, that's a hint to someone. Big, tall glass of water, no. I'll have some water soon. Listen. Hot day, really, really hot day. Cold glass of water. Water's really cold inside the glass. What happens on the outside of the glass? It sweats, it condensates, yes? And that's what you can tell it's cold. And if I take that glass of water, if I take that glass of water to my lips and I start to drink that water, and you're sitting there like you are, oh, I wish I could have some. And I say to you how beautiful it is. This is so refreshing. This is so, my tongue is glorious and it's going down my throat. Does that give you benefit or not? Me telling you about it. What do you have to do? You've got to drink it yourself, people. You've got to drink it yourself. I can tell you how much the Bible excites me. And it's a true story, it's not a put on. You know, Sabbath, I have energy. My little sister oftentimes says, but please forgive her for what she says she hates me because I've got all the energy of the family. And this is like the ever-ready battery thing. And she says those words. That's how she speaks to her older brother. But I'm telling you, when it comes to the Sabbath, I actually get more energy. I love the Sabbath. I love the Sabbath. And you know how much I love the Sabbath? When the sun goes down tomorrow night, I'm already looking forward to the Sabbath. You know, when it came time to Sabbath, the Jewish people, when it came to time for the Sabbath, they would blow the shofar. Have you ever heard of that? The shofar. Every time I think of this story, I think I want to buy a shofar so my neighbourhood knows when the Sabbath is in. So please, people, ring me and remind me, have you bought the shofar yet? Because I keep forgetting. I want to buy a shofar and learn how to blow it. So my neighbourhood knows, what's that noise? It's the Sabbath. But when the Sabbath came in, the Jews would sing a halal. Not just one, several halals. And the halals were joyous. It's the Sabbath. But when the Sabbath was leaving, they would sing a halal of mourning. Not M-O-U-R-N, because they were sad that the Sabbath was going. But in the halal was hope. Now, you know what happens in our churches today? When the Sabbath is coming in, when the Sabbath is going out. But it's the truth, isn't it?
Right.
I'm telling you the honest truth. People, that is not the way to come to the Sabbath.
Amen.
When the Sabbath comes in, people can't wait till the Sabbath is over. Is that sun down yet? Is that not sad? You know what Ellen White tells us? Guard the edges of the Sabbath. And so many times, it's a tragedy what happens on the Sabbath. Do you know that God ordered Moses to stone a man for picking up sticks on the Sabbath? And what happens in the Sabbath, we have such little regard sometimes for the Sabbath. Do you understand what I'm talking about, people? The Sabbath is the Sabbath. It is the holy, holy time of God. And we should respect God for that. It's the time where God wants to commune with us. The Sabbath. Oh, my stars. Thank you, dear. Oh, excuse me. Amen. The Lord says, whosoever thirsteth, come and drink from me, and never be thirsty again. Thank you, Lord. Thank you. Blessed is the man who trusts in the Lord. Listen, I'm finishing off. Have you ever heard of Marie Durand? Marie Durand, I know you've heard because I've talked about Marie Durand before. Marie Durand, anyone ever heard of Marie Durand? Back in the 1700s, when the Protestants were copping a real bash. There was a Tower of Constance. What was happening? There was there was crusades going on, but then there was the time when Protestants were hunted down like wild animals. And again, I don't want to give too much glory to the Lord. I'd rather give glory to God. To the devil. I want to give glory to the Lord tonight. So in the time of, the French Revolution time and so on, Protestants were forced to meet in the desert, in caves and other remote areas. Getting caught was carrying a high price. Men were condemned to the galleys. Women were locked away in prison. The most notorious was the Tower of Constance. Originally constructed as a military lookout in a lighthouse, the tower contained 2 large circular chambers, 28 feet in diameter, one on top of the other. Light and air entered into the upper chamber through a 6-foot diameter hole. Do you know ladies were locked in there? There was 130 ladies that were imprisoned there. One particular young lady was 16 years old. And her brother was a preacher. Her brother was a preacher. And he was a very strong preacher. And there were people out to get him. And you know what they did? They used his little sister as bait. They put her in jail. The brother was eventually killed, but the little young lady, she grew up in jail. She stayed in jail. And let me read you this. Her name was Marie Durand. When Marie entered the tower, she brought the signature Durand family seal of the Lord to the gloomy prisoners. One can only imagine, this girl was thriving, people, and this was a young lady. One can only imagine what a ray of sunshine she was to the poor souls languishing in darkest despair. You know what they said? Of most of the 130 ladies that were kept prisoner in there, they came out blind because there was hardly any light in there. This is sadness. Let me read on. Most of the women had no formal education. Marie became their lifeline to the outside world, helping them to read. But so if they had candles or whatever, but it was a very dark and good there. She also wrote numerous appeals for improvement of conditions of prisons, many of which were acted upon. She read Psalms, and so, like I say, the place was dark, but they must have had a little bit of thing. But it goes on, it says here, a single word etched into the stone walls was what? Does anyone know what that word was? Because you know what they were trying to get her to do? Recant her faith. That's what they were trying to get Martin Luther to do. Recant. And you know what Martin Luther said? He said, I cannot recant because it goes against my conscience for me to recant what I believe in God. This young lady was in prison for something like 47 years. And she had scratched into the walls, the stone walls, the word resist. 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 Doesn't the Bible tell us, resist the devil and he will flee from you? He will flee from you. Resist from the devil and he will flee from you. We're going to close, people, right now. My favourite verse in the Bible is this, verse Romans 1:16. Can we just turn to it because we're going to close? Romans 1:16. Romans 1:16 reads like this. Romans 1:16 reads, for I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, for it is what?
Power of God.
Stop there for 1 second.
Amen.
What is that word in Greek? Does anyone know what that word power is in Greek?
No.
What is it? Who said it? Dunamis? Is that what you said? Who said it? Did someone say dunamis? I heard a voice. I'm hearing voices. Dunamis. That word is dunamis. Do you know what that word dunamis is? And I'm promising you, I'm closing my Bible now because I can see it's 8:30 and we've had enough. That word dunamis, does anyone know what the word dunamis means? What is the word that sounds like dunamis? You know what the word dynamite comes from? For I am not ashamed of the gospel of Jesus Christ, because it is the dynamite of God unto salvation. People, I don't tell children to go and play with matches or anything like that, but this is dynamite in your hands. Dynamite. This is dynamite. This is dynamite. I just pray that these last 5 nights,
Amen,
that I have not done a disservice to you in any way, but that I have led you to come and understand that this Bible, that as much blood has been spilt over this Bible, so many people's lives have been lost to bring us this Bible. My prayer is that somehow you've been revived. Somehow you've got a glimpse of heaven. Somehow you've said to yourself, hey, listen, I've got to get rid of this in my life. Please, I'm not sitting here saying, oh, you wicked sinners. No, no, no. What I'm saying to you is, draw your life closer to the Lord. Get rid of the things that you need to get rid of. Open up your heart and let the sun shine in. Whatever is accumulated in your heart, get rid of it. Do you want the Lord to bless you?
Amen.
The Lord asked the man 38 years sick, do you want to be well? My question to you people is, do you want to be well?
Amen.
Do you want to be well, Arthur?
Amen.
Hey?
Amen.
Do you people all want to be well?
Amen.
I want to be well as well.
Amen.
Let's close in prayer. Lord God, Heavenly Father, Lord, I just pray thank you for giving me the opportunity, dear Lord, to speak over these last 5 nights, Lord. But Lord, even though you gave me the opportunity to speak, dear Lord, the opportunity was all yours, Lord, for you to speak to the people. And I just pray, dear God, that something of what I've said is stuck and that we apply it into our lives. Lord, you spoke to me first. I could not go through this, preparing all this, Lord, without being converted myself. So, dear Lord, I just pray tonight that as we come to a close, that this is not a close, but an opening. A commencement in the hearts of these people, dear Lord, to make a concerted effort to draw closer to you, dear God. We know that Jesus is the way, the truth, and life more abundant and free. So, dear God, please be with us now as we commit the balance of our lives to you. We can fool each other, Lord, but we can't fool you. I pray in the name of Jesus.
Amen.